Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. We're going to have to talk a little bit more, I think, about sorrow and pain and suffering and growth and whether or not it's necessary and so on. Because I did that video called Suffering and Growth, and it seems like a lot of people really took exception to the idea that growth and learning and stuff is difficult, hard work, painful, and often pain and suffering are included with it, not just sweat and hard work. Labor, mental sweat is involved. Not only that, but perseverance. Well, I've got a poem and a song. One of the song is written by Paul Anka, A-N-K-A, but you probably know it as Frank Sinatra's song, My Way. Now, before I go off on that, I'm going to do a lot of the lyrics in that. It's a really good song. But I want to mention Lisa Van Dam first before I go off on that. Lisa Van Dam was opening her school in Irvine, California, and they had to get a place for the school which ended up being in the same building that the city council sat in. And anytime you open a new business, you have to do an environmental impact report. So they had to do an environmental impact report on moving into one of the suites in this 20-year-old office building, which the city council was in. So during the public hearing, one of the women who lived nearby, and they notify everybody in the area, new thing might open, come and have your say if you want to come have your say at a public meeting, so that the public doesn't just get steamrolled into things, so they have a choice, right? So this lady stands up and she says she has no children, she doesn't have any kids in the school, she didn't know anything about the school, she still doesn't know anything about the school at the meeting or Lisa or anything else, and she says, I really don't think that this school is a good experience for these kids. She elects herself valiant savior of the children without knowing a damn thing about the subject one way or the other. Why do people do this? Why? You have to shrug. You just have to shrug and say, I don't know why they do it. They do it. And that's one of the things you have to get around in life. You can't let these people, beat you down or stop you. When there's thousands of them screaming at you and you're the only one who believes what you believe, you still can't let them get you down. So I think that a lot of people took my attitude wrongly when I did that first video, Suffering and Growth. The idea, they don't want to buy into the idea of a malevolent universe, a universe that's just sad and bad and mad and mean. They don't want to buy into that. Now, I don't think the universe is that way. That's why, even though these dunces and idiots and imbeciles are all around me, I'm still going to push on towards my goal, because it's not a bad, mad, mean universe. It's actually a benevolent universe. It's just that there are idiots out there. That's all. So, Lisa Van Dam experienced it. Here's Paul Anka's take on it. He was sitting at a... By the way, here's the background of the lyrics, just quickly. He was sitting at a table with Frank Sinatra and two mob guys. I didn't know either. I didn't know Frank was into the mob. I don't know anything about Frank. I'll just call him Frank to seem like I'm familiar with him. They're sitting in a restaurant in Florida with two mob guys. Frank says to Paul, I'm out of the business. I'm sick of showbiz. I hate it. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm out of it. Dirty, filthy business. I'm out. Well, later on, Paul is, I think he's in California, and he calls up Frank in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m., because he's just written the lyrics to this song. Now, Paul's record company was mad at him for not keeping the lyrics for them. It turned out to be a smash hit song. And they were mad at him for just giving the lyrics to Frank Sinatra. And he said, no, it was Frank's song. It was for Frank to sing. It was written for Frank. It was Frank's story. Now, that's all on Wikipedia. Here's My Way by Paul Anka, popularized and sang by Frank Sinatra. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. It's curtains, that means it's the death, right? So he's looking back on a long life. My friends, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case of which I'm certain. Full stop. I like that line. To be certain of things. Who's ever certain of anything nowadays? And rabid skepticism is such a... Everybody just, the first thing out of their mouth, "Hi, my name's Brandon, what's your name?" "Oh, I'm not certain." Everybody says that first thing they say. You can be certain of nothing. We all know that. Alright, so he says, "I'll state my case of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. And much more than this, I did it my way." I like that line. "Regrets I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, and saw it through without exemption." Now, I want to pause there. That's got a particular meaning for me at this point in my life. I did what I had to do, and I saw it through without exemption. Now, I could, right now I'm a couple weeks from moving to New York City, after having moved from Connecticut to Utah just a few years back, and having moved from Utah to Connecticut for my college education years before that. So here I am now moving across the country for the third time, and it's inevitability. It's an inertia that takes me where my plans have... I didn't see that it was going to drag me hither and thither like this, but I can't ignore the logic of my plans of what I want to do. I want to open a school. So, after trying and trying, I moved back to the town I was born and raised in after a car hit my kitchen and I had to leave my apartment on the fly so they could rebuild the kitchen wall. We just said, shit, we'll move all the stuff up to Dad's. I'll put some of the nieces and nephews in the school, we'll get it started. Voila, that's exactly what happened. We got it started. Then, my nieces and nephews were withdrawn for disagreements with the parent, and the other parents that I didn't have this agreement with to stay here and educate their kids are a bit disappointed. Fine. I've got some experience. That's what I needed. I got the school started, I got experience, I got up to my elbows in little kids and screaming and bananas in the middle of the day for lunch and stuff, all kinds of stuff of different ages. Now I've got to open the school in a serious place. I could, at this point, drop all of what I have been planning and thinking and going forward with. You know, I need experience to open the school. Fine, I've got some experience. Now I'm going to go open the school in a serious place with people who support and pay me. Wait, why don't I stop before I take that step and stay here in this little town and try to make the private school work in this place where there's not a lot of money and not a lot of people, and the people that are here don't care a lot about education? Why, though? What would impel me to stay here? Well, the expense and difficulty of moving, frankly. And the fact that I've got free room and board, living in my dad's house. He's got a huge house with 2 kitchens and 4 bedrooms and an extra living room and extra front door and stuff. Why not just stay here and live the easy life? Keep doing YouTube videos and read? Wait a minute. My plan was to open a school. Now, I've already done what I can in this little town. It'll just continue to drag on with people who can't pay me very much or hardly anything at all, or maybe nothing in some cases. I might get full-paying students at some point, some full-paying students, maybe, if I work hard. But why? Why? You know? So that's the thing is, I did what I had to do. It drags me hither and thither, and I saw it through without exemption. So even when it was more comfortable, even when I would have liked to just relax, sit back, soak up free room and board, and just pay my bills by the donations to the school and tuition from what parents will pay, and just live like that. Why not? Because I have my plans, and I'm going to do what I have to do. At this point, it requires moving clear across the country again, because it's just inevitable. The logic is inevitable. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. Aha! So, success is not something that just falls into your lap. It's something you have to hunt down and kill. Much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I guess you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. I think that's a pretty good line. That's going to happen sometimes, but here's what he says about it. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. And that rings so true for me for some of the stuff I've had to say to some people over the last few years about how difficult it'll be to open a school, and you can't open a school and it'll be impossible, and you don't have any experience, and you're not a teacher, and you don't have a degree, blah, blah, blah. I ate it up and spit it out. I grew tall through it all and did it my way. I've loved, laughed, and cried. I've had my fill my share of